Hello out there. It's Tuesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is a special edition of Higher Ed Live. Higher Ed Live is part of the Higher Ed Live Network, a series of professional web development shows and podcasts, which are always free and accessible to you in the archives at higheredlive.com and on iTunes. Be a part of our broadcast by tuning in live and sharing your insights and questions using the Higher Ed Live hashtag on Twitter. You can receive weekly updates with live show dates and times by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. And I always get that second show doubled up. Oops, sorry about that. All right, back on track. Today's show would not be possible without the support of Cornell University, M. Stoner, and Omni Update. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a marketing communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. In July, M. Stoner is hosting an in-depth two-part webinar series focused on how colleges and universities can offer program, major, and degree pages that don't suck. These are the products our institutions offer, yet many degree pages on .edu sites are long, lackluster, and lifeless. We're tweeting out a link now where you can learn more and register. Omni Update is the leading web content management system provider for higher education. The company's web CMS is called OU Campus. It's secure and scalable. It's got great tools and features. It's got deployment flexibility and an awesome user community. We've just tweeted out a link to their special social media hub that you can host on your own website. So getting back to today's show, I'm your host, Ashley Budd, streaming live from Saratoga Springs, New York. And on our show today, we'll be discussing how to harness the spirit and enthusiasm of world events for higher education. A couple of weeks ago, during our usual airtime, I found myself in direct conflict with the US-Germany match in the World Cup. And in case you've been leading a sheltered life for the past couple of weeks, we're in the midst of the 2014 World Cup, a worldwide soccer extravaganza that takes place just every 4 years. For those of you participating in the World Cup via social media, I would love to see your favorite media spots or interactions from the game so far. You can start sharing your favorite media with us now on Twitter. Just use the Higher Ed Live hashtag. So I have a few of my own to share from the Twitterverse. I've seen the U.S. Soccer Organization do a lot of really great stuff over Twitter, and they've got a really highly personalized engagement coming out of a second Twitter handle that they run called US Soccer Reply. If you haven't interacted with the @US Soccer handle, it would be interesting to just do a test and see if they're still running things post the US loss. But it was in my experience during one of the US games that I retweeted one of their posts with the team getting off the bus before a match, just retweeted their video and got a reply from this @US Soccer Reply handle with a customized link to a jersey. And I'm going to do a screen share right here so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So keep in mind, here I am just tweeting away at US Soccer, and this is the tweet and photo I received from them. Photo of my own Ashley Budd jersey with my Twitter handle on there, a seemingly handwritten note saying, fans like you make us stronger. Thank you for our support. They have the One Nation, One Team hashtag, and then it's just a one click from this photo image to then go ahead and personalize my own jersey and make the buy right there. Already has my name in it. They know I'm a small somehow, but they didn't know that I was a woman. So still a little work to do, but I hadn't seen anything. It was clearly automated the way the reply went out, but I hadn't seen anything on Twitter so personalized before, so I have to give some props to the U.S. soccer folks for putting that together. That's just one example from the World Cup that I saw. Again, I would love to hear anyone watching today if you've seen some great media spots or have had your own interactions around the World Cup frenzy that's happening, and we'd be happy to share those on air. But next, I want to talk about second screen experiences, and you can't discuss world events in 2014 without two-screen experiences. Two-screen or second-screen experiences take advantage of the phenomenon that has taken place as smartphones and tablets have entered our living rooms. If you have a smartphone or a tablet, and if you're tuning into Higher Ed Live, I'm going to assume that you do have one or both. You might find yourself watching TV and interacting with your phone or interacting with your iPad at the same time, or your tablet. And so these experiences are ones that take place in parallel to your first screen experience, which would be your TV. And I can share an example from Cornell from earlier this year. In February, the Westminster Dog Show was held at Madison Square Garden, having a large constituency of dog lovers at Cornell. Alumni Affairs partnered with the Veterinary College to offer a second screen experience during the live broadcast. We offered a behind-the-scenes preview of the show via a YouTube video, and that was filmed at MSG the day of the show. This video was used in promotional communication, but then during the live broadcast on TV of the Westminster Dog Show, we had subject matter experts, including faculty, staff, and alumni volunteers, that moderated a live chat where viewers of the dog show could ask specific questions about the breeds they were seeing on TV. The online event yielded 195 participants from the class of 1946 to the class of 2016. And the beauty of something like this was we just set up a simple chat feature on our website. We did have a login requirement, so we were capturing first, last name, and email address. It was an option to give class year and their university ID. But it was a simple setup that we did with a service called Chatroll, and no one had to leave the comfort of their own homes. So we didn't have to ask a faculty member to show up and speak somewhere. We didn't have to ask volunteers to be in a certain location to help. Everyone could just log in from the comfort of their own home. No space needed reserving, and there was very little content created because the real content that we were using was the TV show that was already happening. So social media strategies like these can scale from niche events like the Westminster Dog Show to larger audiences watching the Super Bowl or the World Cup. The approach is unique for higher ed, I think, because we're meeting our constituents where they are, and we're adding value to that experience that they're already interested in, rather than asking them to meet us where we are or where we want them to be. Joining me today is Kim Brown, known in the Twitterverse as Kim in Cuse. Kim is Assistant Director for Alumni Programs and Career Services at Syracuse University. She's led a career-driven alumni Twitter program on the handle Working Orange. And here with us today to talk about harnessing Working Orange during world events, I want to welcome Kim Brown.
Whoop, whoop. Thank you. It's good to be here, Ashley. I appreciate you having me on today. And we had technical difficulties last week. Up until about 1:57 p.m., I didn't think we'd be on this week. So I'm really excited that it actually worked. Thank you, technology gods.
Yes. I'm so happy to have you here virtually. And I can't wait to pick your brain about Working Orange. But before we do that, I just want you to tell me a little bit about your role at Syracuse, because I think it's one that does not exist at every campus.
Yeah, I think it's fun what I do. I enjoy it immensely. My job started as a coordinator position. It was kind of like, hey, we should do some things with alumni and students, and then I think it just kind of evolved into now being what it is today. And really, my job is to help our alumni remain connected to the university through offering jobs, offering internships, offering career advice to students, and a huge way we do that is through some of our social media tools. We have a LinkedIn group, we have the Working Orange Twitter handle. I probably do LinkedIn profile reviews about 50,000 times a week, trying to keep our students on board with how LinkedIn is utilized, and our alumni as well. So it's really about bringing alumni back to campus to share their experiences, whether that's in person or through vehicles like Working Orange, through social media, and then I go out and host a bunch of networking events for alumni and students as well all across the country. So it's good that I'm in town because I'm off to Denver and San Francisco and Chicago and some real fun places soon in the next few weeks. So that's me.
Very exciting. I have a knock at my door that I am going to answer. But if you could explain just a little bit more about what Working Orange is, when it started, and maybe some of your favorite anecdotal stories about that?
Yeah, I totally can. I'm going to feel like I'm just talking to my camera and not to you. Awesome. Go settle that knock. Yeah, so Working Orange, we actually started it not this past January, but the January prior, so January of 2013. And it was born out of a meeting. It was a social media team meeting in my office. So there's lots of us in the office who, we like Twitter, we love Pinterest, we do Facebook sometimes, and my boss was like, well, why don't we do a social media team? So we were on that team, and one of my coworkers brought up NYU, Wasserman, and they have a Twitter handle where employer partners with their career center, they tweet a day in the life of their companies. And so I said, well, what if we had our alumni tweet a day in the life of what they do? Take us through their jobs, do job shadowing, but use Twitter as the vehicle. And so that's how Working Orange was born. Luckily, that handle wasn't taken. Orange is our mascot, so that worked out well for us. And we had one of our he's awesome. He didn't go to Syracuse, but he does a ton of art for the university. And so I asked him if he'd be willing to do the logo, and so we got a super adorable Otto with a briefcase on his way to work, and that became Working Orange. So it's been so cool to watch it develop. We started it, we have a lot of alumni who do have a pretty good following on Twitter, so the goal was to start with alumni who have that good following so that people would be like, what's this? What's Working Orange? And so during the school year, we were doing it every day of the week, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. So then we were doing 4 days a week, and now during the summer we just do it on Wednesdays. And I give the password of the account to whoever the guest tweeter is for the day, and they take us through a day in the life. How'd you get your job? What'd you study at SU? What does your office look like? Who's got the most orange in their workspace? And it's been really cool. And so far, it's just, one alum will do it, and then their friends will see that they did it, and then they'll want to do it. And so recruitment-wise, that's one of the biggest questions I get from schools that want to do this is, how do you get people to tweet? And so far, it's been pretty organic that it developed, except in the case of this Working Orange that we're talking about specifically. So I'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess one question while we're on the subject of kind of best practices around this, because I know there'll be plenty of follow-up questions after people see how cool it is, what you're doing there. So you said it kind of spreads organically, but are there certain kinds of alum that you find that this platform works really well for, or audiences that receive it better than others?
Absolutely. We try. Sometimes it feels like it's the Newhouse Working Orange. Newhouse is our communications school. So obviously alumni of our communications school, they love to communicate, and many of them are working in social media, so Twitter feels very comfortable for them. So I try, when I'm doing the schedule and trying to plan out who's going to be on the account, I try really hard to diversify and make sure that if we've had a few Newhouse grads in a row, that we do have an iSchool grad, or we do have a Whitman or management school grad come in. And students have asked for that as well. Some of them say, like, I'll meet with them in my office to do LinkedIn, and I'll say, yeah, I follow Working Orange, but it's all people who, do communications. I want to do project management. And so then I can make an active outreach effort. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult, though, because folks who are, head down engineers planning, nuclear strategy for whatever, I'm exaggerating, obviously, they're not thinking about tweeting their workday. So it's a little difficult to try and diversify sometimes, but so far it's worked out pretty well. People who share pictures, who have their iPhones or who have the ability to share pictures during the day, that's just like Twitter 101, though, too. I mean, the more pictures you share, the more interaction you're going to get.
But might not happen on a top secret.
Yeah, so when you have
work zone.
Yeah, probably can't be tweeting a photo of that, but no, it's cool. It's fun.
So I'm really interested to hear how you're using Working Orange to connect followers with Syracuse during the World Cup.
Yeah, so it was like totally perfect timing. This wasn't, I can't even pat myself on the back for like, good job, Kim, way to get a great Working Orange on board, because it came through our Syracuse network. So there's a Syracuse grad who follows me on Twitter. His name is Jim Hamill, and he's a reporter down in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And so he reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, I see you're doing this Working Orange thing. Got a buddy of mine who's working for U.S. Soccer. He's about to go down to Brazil. Wouldn't he be awesome on Working Orange? And I was like, yes, he would. I would love to have him on Working Orange. And the timing was perfect. So I got the email address for this guy, and his name is Steve Hoffman. So I reached out to Steve, and I was like, hey, your buddy Jim, you were roommates at Syracuse. He told me that you're going down to Brazil. Like, want to tweet? And he wrote back and said it would be difficult for him to do the tweeting, but hey, my boss is totally on board. He'd love to do it, so let me connect you with him. And his boss was actually staying in Chicago. I don't really know how that works, how the guy who's underneath him gets to go to Brazil and the boss stays in Chicago, but that's another story. So his boss, Mike Gressel, he and I connected, and he was like, yeah, sure, like I'd love to do this. So Steve, the one who I initially reached out to, he ended up doing a local radio interview for us here in Syracuse as a Syracuse grad who was down in Brazil, and so that was a connection we made, separate. And then Mike Russell was able to take the reign of Working Orange and do that for a day. Wednesday, right before was the Germany game on that Thursday? I'm forgetting now. It feels like it was so long ago. Yeah, so it was that Wednesday, and he's like, he's tweeting pictures of, here's where our watch party is going to be in Grant Park in Chicago, and he was one of the first people to tweet out the letter that the coach of the team had written, the get out of work for free card on Thursday during the game. So he shared that on Working Orange. And I think our followers who saw it were like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like, this is somebody who is directly connected to a huge world event. And he went to Syracuse, and I could talk to him right now. And so that was really fun to see that play out.
And I'm sure, I know that I follow it, and I don't go to Syracuse, or I didn't go to Syracuse, and it's just so interesting to be able to use such a simple platform to connect people in a really powerful way, in a really personal way, and I think because you're asking people to kind of open up their work lives just for this short period of time, you get some really authentic, thoughtful content.
It's funny too. Some people will start at like 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, our alumni will get really excited about it, and so they'll like get on their phones at 6 a.m. and they'll start tweeting their days. And I have to email and be like, those are awesome tweets, but nobody's awake, so
no, totally can't.
Tweet them later in the day. But they're doing what their workout is in the morning, their routine, a picture of their office building, how do they get to work, and it really, I think, for anyone who's in higher ed who thinks like, how do we get our students to realize what a typical day is in a workplace, how our alumni who went before them landed those job opportunities. I think it's just a neat way of doing that. And then when it allows you to see something that's going on in the world that all eyes are on, Like, I think, we've got an alum, Andrew Burton, who's a photographer for Getty Images. He goes everywhere. He doesn't know it yet, but he's on my list for recruiting for Working Orange. I mean, he sees things with his camera lens that many of us will only see in the newspapers when they make it there, or make it onto the nightly news or wherever it might be. So if we can start getting our alumni to be our eyes for these types of events, and to do it through a platform as simple as Twitter, or any other, like you mentioned, second screen opportunities, I think it's definitely something we want to tap into, and I think our alumni would be looking for that.
And so can you tell me a little bit about where this content lives after it happens?
Well, when I'm on top of my game, it lives on Storify. But when I'm not really on top of things, I don't get it to Storify as quickly as it should. But we've been trying to, and especially during the school year when I have students who can come in and help, we've been trying to take that and move it into Storify so that every tweeter, their day on the account is archived on Storify. Like when we had Dennis Crowley do it, it was right before they launched the Swarm app. He's the Foursquare founder. They were just about to launch Swarm, and so that I saved obviously on Storify because that's a entrepreneur who's launching something brand new. I mean, and it was the day before it was going to launch or really close to it. And so those are the kind of things that you want to be able to, when you meet with a student or when you meet with an alum, be like, I know just the person for you. Go take a look at what Dennis does on a day-to-day basis, and you'll get a good idea for that career. So that's one of my, you must have been reading my performance review. That's one of my goals, to be better at at archiving these Working Orange days, because they really are very effective for showing students what a real day is like.
I promise you I have not.
I don't know, lady.
I did want to ask, so we're living in this attention economy where there are so many things getting fired at us, especially over the social networks. And I think we've seen there are some strategies in play where we can use more imagery or we can have some more rich media in our content to kind of bust through that distraction. But I want to know what your thoughts are on this idea of content strategy around world events and the potential of using our own college and university experts, even just outside of the worlds that you and I live in, working directly with alumni, but using the experts that we have during these world events to engage our followers. And I think it's a detraction from what we are used to doing in content strategy. And for higher ed, we're always trying to get people to look at us and what we're doing right now. So I'm just curious about your thoughts about looking at what's happening in the world and then trying to reverse it back to our campuses.
Right. I mean, I think, you think about all the experts that we have on our college campuses, and when Google Plus is working properly on college computers, being able to have them come up and do a hangout for alumni, do something, a hangout on air where your alumni can sit down and feel like they have somebody who has studied this topic, who knows what's going on in Egypt, who knows what's going on. I remember we've put professors on the road before for like cell phone security, like issues like that. I mean, that's not a world event. That is a world issue. Everybody cares about that. I mean, when you talk about data theft or security breaches, and that's something, Target stores, that's at least all over the U.S., something that's affecting a lot of our alumni. So if we can get the expert on campus who knows everything about data security up on a Google Plus Hangout or doing a chat with our alumni, or even, Facebook to me might not be the best platform for it, but it's potential. You talk about using, Ustream and all the different ways of live streaming events. So even if there was something that, would happen on campus during one of your reunion weekends where you've got an expert talking about a world event, but then making sure to live broadcast to the alumni who can't be back for reunion weekend. And so I think we do have a tendency to highlight ourselves and what we're doing, but we have experts here on campus. We also, I mean, you go on LinkedIn on any given day and type in people who know a lot about topic X, you're going to find people who are part of your community, who've gone to your university, who are the experts on these topics. So utilize them, and maybe you don't look from within for your experts, but you look at your, community as a whole, people who went to the college or university that you represent, and think about utilizing them. And that, I think, as we move forward, is something that we're going to try and get into more, is really who are our experts and who can we put out there to make our alumni feel like my Syracuse education ended. I graduated in 4 years, but it didn't really end because I'm still learning a ton from my alma mater. And so that's where I think it can really be helpful. Did I answer your question, hopefully?
You did. Great. Okay. Great point about not just world events, but looking at world issues. And I know from experience, sometimes we schedule live streams way in advance, and they just happen to fall on a hot topic.
Yep.
And it takes just a little bit of digging to find out what those hashtags are that are trending on Twitter around those topics, that you can kind of tap into a larger audience. And you and I do live in this alumni world, but these are important things for prospective students and for local community members that interact with our universities. And you mentioned the lifelong learning. I know that our alumni in particular have strong affinities back to the campuses because of certain faculty members that made an impact with them. So being able to kind of keep them in touch with their favorite faculty members is a strategy that I think we can continue to explore as we, continue to promote the thing that we do best, which is educating.
I think
go ahead.
For prospective students, what are their parents thinking about? They're thinking about, how are we going to pay for this college education, and how is what we're paying going to pay off? So, I mean, it's not a world event, but it is an issue of mass importance. The financial aid issue, what's changing, what do we need to know, and so I know it's a little bit, different than watching World Cup soccer and having a guy tweet about it through Working Orange, but it still shows you that there are so many things going on that if your university can provide that value, whether it's someone who is on the payroll here or someone who went to your university, provide that program, provide that value, that's huge. And I think Google Plus makes it so easy, and so many other technologies. I mean, even FaceTime, that's more one-to-one, but that's an opportunity as well. Skype, whatever it ends up being. So that's my
absolutely. And I know our time is running a little tight here, but I did want to mention a couple other things that were happening in the higher ed world around the World Cup. Ryan Moorjohn shared with us last week that he has been posting the best viewing locations on campus for world events, particularly for the World Cup. So it's easy to think about our audiences being all over the world and trying to bring them back to campus, but there's a lot of things that we can do to bring these world events and highlight them right on our campuses too. So I really like that, sharing posts of the best viewing locations on campus, or maybe in the city where you have large alumni constituents, or in the city where your campus is. They also, Ryan Moorjohn also, at one of these viewing parties, captured the reaction of the students watching the U.S.-Germany game right at the end when that last goal was scored, and he made an animated GIF out of the reaction and posted it on Tumblr, and that was, that's social media gold right there. So don't forget ways to capture and repurpose some of this content. I also saw a really great photo booth from a campus event where they, instead of just taking still photos, were taking slow motion videos of people jumping up and down and celebrating, which is another piece of social media gold in my book. And then lastly, Matt Hames from Colgate University said that they were going to be showing the World Cup games on the big screen at Andy Kerr, the Colgate Stadium. So they were really getting into the spirit there, and it shows that our campuses aren't always so inward looking, that when we do look outward, we can make a big deal out of things that are happening all over the world, and get our students and our alumni all over the place involved.
And I think just something as simple as, we had an alum, Ben Cerny, who works for ESPN, so he was down at the World Cup, and he would tweet me a picture of like his Otto ball cap at the Dutch game, and so he would say, like, they're orange, we're orange, Otto's here. And so even just encouraging your alumni, if you are experiencing a world event, share those experiences with us, and then we can share them with a larger audience. And so, that's a small thing, but that came to mind as well.
Great. Well, I want to thank you so much for making today's show possible, sharing a little bit about Working Orange. I encourage all of you to just give it a follow. If you could possibly replicate something like Kim has done on her campus, we'd love to see what you're able to work up on your campuses. Thanks, as always, to our program sponsors, mStoner, Omni Update, and for Cornell University for allowing me to take the time out of my day to produce shows like these. We'll be back to our normal schedule this week with shows from Student Affairs and Marketing Live. You can receive a weekly reminder about these shows by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter right off the homepage. If you want more professional development now, go ahead and browse our archives at higheredlive.com or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. I am Ashley Budd, and I will be back next month with more on Higher Ed Live.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kim.